Hi guys, and welcome to Quiet Voice Podcast channel. Tonight we're stepping into the winter of 1947, where a luxury train waits beneath the pale lamps of a snowy station, ready to carry you north towards Stowe, Vermont. The platform shines beneath a thin coat of ice. Snow settles on the shoulders of travellers, on leather suitcases, and along the dark roof of the waiting train, warm yellow light spills from its windows, promising polished wood, soft blankets, and a night protected from the blizzard gathering beyond the station walls. You hear the quiet hiss of steam, the distant call of a porter, and the measured ringing of a platform bell. Everything moves with calm purpose. Even the snow seems polite, at least for the moment. So, before you settle into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. You can also leave a comment sharing where you are listening from and what time it is there. Perhaps it is late evening, perhaps the middle of the night, or perhaps you have wisely decided that afternoon is an excellent time for sleep. Now it's time to rest. You stand beneath the high iron canopy with your ticket held safely inside one gloved hand. The paper feels firm and slightly rough beneath your thumb. Printed across it is the name of the Northern Service, followed by the promise of a private sleeping compartment and a comfortable journey toward the Vermont mountains. Around you, the station carries the familiar sense of coal smoke, damp wool, strong coffee, and cold metal. A porter passes with a brass luggage cart, its small wheels rattling over the uneven platform stones. He wears a dark uniform with bright buttons, and he moves with the balanced patience of someone who has guided thousands of suitcases through thousands of winter departures. The train beside you appears almost impossibly elegant. Its deep painted sides reflect the platform lamps into long golden streaks. Frost gathers around the window edges, while silver handrails gleam beside each carriage door. Near the front, the locomotive releases a slow cloud of steam that rolls across the tracks like low fog. Records confirm that by the 1940s, American railroads had developed sleeping cars, dining cars, and observation lounges designed to make long journeys feel like travelling hotels. Passengers could dine from china plates, sleep behind private doors, and wake hundreds of miles from where they had closed their eyes. Air travel exists, of course, but for most people it is still expensive, unfamiliar, and rather more adventurous than relaxing. A station attendant studies the large clock overhead. Its hands approach the departure hour with stern precision. In 1947, railway time is not a casual suggestion. The entire system depends upon timetables, signals, and crews who understand that a few careless minutes can cause trouble far down the line. You approach the carriage entrance. A small metal step has been placed below the door, though a dusting of snow already covers its surface. The porter offers one white-gloved hand, steadying you as you climb aboard. The change is immediate. The wind disappears behind you. The noise of the platform becomes soft and distant. Warm air touches your face, carrying the faint fragrance of waxed wood, clean linen, and something gently floral from a vase placed farther down the corridor. Your boots meet a thick carpet patterned in dark red and gold. Brass lamps glow along walls panelled with polished walnut. Small framed landscapes show peaceful farms, covered bridges, and mountain villages under summer skies, which seems almost rude considering the weather outside. Oddly enough, railway companies sometimes treated their finest trains as travelling advertisements for entire regions. Interior colours, dining menus, and decorative artwork could be chosen to suggest the landscapes along the route. You are not merely transported to a destination, you are introduced to it gradually, with upholstery. The porter checks your ticket and attaches a small handwritten label to your suitcase. He explains that your compartment is farther along the carriage, on the quiet side, away from the connecting door. His voice is low and reassuring, as though he understands that tonight the train is not simply carrying you north, it is removing you from every ordinary concern that has followed you to the station. You walk through the narrow corridor while snow brushes softly against the windows. Each compartment door has a shining handle, and a small number displayed beneath a glass cover. Behind one door, someone laughs quietly. Behind another, a radio plays an orchestra so softly that the music seems to come from the walls themselves. Scholars still bicker over whether luxury rail travel of this period should be remembered as a widely shared symbol of modern progress, or as a comfort available mainly to wealthier passengers. Both views contain truth. Railroads carried people from many backgrounds, but the most elegant compartments remained beyond the reach of many families. Tonight, however, your place is waiting. At the far end of the corridor, an attendant opens the door to your compartment. You glimpse a wide seat upholstered in blue velvet, a folded wool blanket, a small wash basin, and curtains heavy enough to keep the whole winter world at a respectful distance. Before entering, you turn toward the window one last time. The platform is now blurred by falling snow. Travellers embrace beneath the lamps. Porters hurry through white clouds of steam. A child presses one mittened hand against the glass of a neighbouring carriage, staring at the storm with solemn amazement. The station bell rings again. The sound is clear, calm and final. A conductor walks the platform, lifting his lantern. His coat moves in the wind. Doors close one by one along the train, each with a deep and satisfying click. You step into your compartment. The attendant places your suitcase beside the seat and draws the door nearly shut, leaving you inside a private circle of warmth. Beyond the glass, snow thickens over the tracks. Beneath your feet, the carriage gives a faint tremble. Tremble. The great journey is ready to begin. The compartment door closes with a soft wooden click, and the corridor becomes a distant world of muffled footsteps and quiet voices. You are alone now, surrounded by the kind of careful comfort that seems to have been arranged by people who take sleep very seriously. The blue velvet seat stretches along one wall, broad enough for you to settle into without ceremony. Its fabric is smooth beneath your palm, though the carved wooden frame feels cool and solid. Above it, a brass reading lamp curves from the wall like a small golden branch. Its shade directs a pool of light onto the seat, leaving the corners of the compartment pleasantly dim. You remove your gloves and place them on the narrow table beside the window. The tabletop has a raised edge, designed to keep cups, books, and spectacles from sliding during sudden movement. Such details suggest that someone, somewhere, once learned a lesson involving spilled coffee and an expensive coat. The wash basin rests inside a polished cabinet. When you lift the lid, you find a porcelain bowl, 2 shining taps, a folded towel, and a small wrapped bar of soap. A glass sits upside down in a fitted metal ring. Nothing rattles, nothing appears carelessly placed. Every object has been assigned a secure little kingdom. Railway records show that private sleeping accommodations on leading American trains in the late 1940s ranged from compact single rooms to larger bedrooms and drawing rooms. Their finest spaces offered wash facilities, generous seating, and beds prepared by attendants while passengers dined or relaxed elsewhere. Comfort depended on the train, the route, and the price of the ticket, but the goal was always the same. The passenger should feel protected from the inconvenience of distance. A narrow wardrobe stands beside the door. You open it and discover wooden hangers, a shoe rack, and enough room for a coat and evening clothes. A faint fragrance of cedar rises from inside. You hang your winter coat carefully, and with it goes the last physical reminder of the platform cold. Your suitcase waits on a folding stand. The leather straps release with 2 quiet snaps. You unpack only what the night requires: a soft sleeping garment, a hairbrush, a small book, and a pair of slippers. The rest can remain where it is. There is no need to organise your entire life inside a moving room, though some travellers would certainly try. A silver call button is mounted near the seat. Below it, a small card explains that an attendant may be summoned for bedding, refreshments, or assistance. The lettering is formal and restrained. It does not say that you may press the button, because you have forgotten where you placed your glasses. Although human nature suggests that someone eventually will, you lower yourself onto the velvet cushion and feel it give gently beneath your weight. The carriage sways almost too slightly to notice. Outside the window, the platform seems to drift. Though the train has not yet gathered speed, snow gathers against the lower edge of the glass, forming a soft white ridge. The compartment contains a small heating control marked with simple settings. You turn it slightly, and a hidden vent releases a quiet stream of warm air. The system is not perfectly silent. It makes a faint ticking sound as the metal adjusts to the temperature, but the noise is steady and oddly comforting. One curious custom on some sleeping trains involved shoes left outside the compartment at night. An attendant could collect them, polish them, and return them before morning. It was a wonderfully refined service, provided you remembered to retrieve your shoes before walking into the corridor in your stockings. On the table, you find a packet of stationery bearing the railway emblem. There are envelopes, writing sheets, and a pencil sharpened to a perfect point. A traveller might use them to describe the journey, send news home, or compose a message that sounds much more romantic simply because it was written on a train. You take the pencil and write the date at the top of one sheet. The motion of the carriage causes the line to rise slightly at the end. You decide this gives the handwriting character. A folded timetable lies beside the stationery. Its columns list towns, junctions, and estimated arrival times in neat black print. You trace the route north with one finger. The names pass beneath your hand, like a chain of quiet promises, each place waiting somewhere beyond the storm. No agreement has been reached on whether the streamlined luxury trains of this era truly transformed passenger comfort, or merely gave older railway traditions a more fashionable appearance. Some historians emphasize improved engineering, climate control, and private accommodation. Others point toward clever promotion, shining metal and glamorous names. The likely answer sits comfortably between them, wearing an excellent suit. A knock sounds at the door. The sleeping car attendant enters after your invitation. He explains the arrangement of the compartment with practiced ease. The seat will later convert into a lower bed, while a second berth is folded behind a panel overhead. Fresh sheets and pillows are stored out of sight. A safety latch secures the door from inside, and a second button beside the bed controls the reading lamp. He demonstrates the window shade, drawing it halfway down. The fabric is thick and lined, blocking the view with surprising completeness. Then he raises it again, allowing the snowy station to return. You thank him, and he asks whether you prefer the bed prepared early or later in the evening. You choose later. The compartment still feels like a private sitting room, and you're not ready to surrender it entirely to sleep. When he leaves, you slide the safety latch into place. The small sound brings an unexpected sense of calm. The room belongs to you for the night. You switch off the ceiling lamp and leave only the brass reading light glowing. The polished wood deepens to the colour of dark honey. The mirror above the basin catches the lamp and turns it into a second, softer flame. The train shifts beneath you. A glass trembles lightly in its holder. Then the wheels begin to move with patient force, drawing your compartment into the snowy darkness while every carefully arranged object remains steady around you. The first pull of the locomotive passes through the carriage like a deep breath. Your seat presses gently against your back. The glass in its holder gives one delicate chime, and the platform begins to side away beneath the lamps. At first, the movement is almost ceremonial. Porters walk beside the train for several paces, watching doors and handrails. A station worker raises one arm. A woman beneath the canopy waves a white handkerchief, though the person receiving this farewell is hidden somewhere farther along the line of carriages. The wheels cross the first set of points with a measured series of clicks. Steel meets steel beneath you, each sound neat and deliberate. The great roof of the station drifts overhead, its iron beams appearing and disappearing through rising clouds of steam. Then the final lamps pass the window. The open night receives you. Snow rushes sideways through the darkness, bright for an instant when it enters the beam from the carriage windows. Beyond it, brick warehouses stand close to the tracks, their loading doors shut and their roofs whitening under the storm. Pipes, ladders, and water towers move past in brief silhouettes. You rest one hand against the wooden window frame. Faint vibration travels into your fingertips. It is steady rather than harsh, a subtle reminder that hundreds of tons of machinery are carrying you away with remarkable confidence. The city does not vanish at once. It loosens its hold gradually. Rows of apartments give way to workshops, workshops to storage yards, and storage yards to scattered houses with narrow gardens. A few kitchen windows remain lit. Somewhere inside, a family finishes washing dishes or turns down a bed, unaware that your warm compartment is passing through their snowy view. The train gathers speed. Its rhythm becomes clearer now. The wheels speak in repeating phrases beneath the floor, firm and low, followed by the softer answer of the carriage joints. The sound does not demand attention, it simply continues, patiently arranging the silence around it. By 1947, passenger railways form the central threads of travel across much of the United States. Trains carry business travellers, holiday visitors, soldiers returning to the civilian life, families seeking new homes, and winter guests heading toward mountain resorts. The road network is expanding, but long-distance driving through severe snow remains a tiring and uncertain undertaking. From your window, that uncertainty looks very cold indeed. A motor car creeps along a road running beside the tracks. Its headlamps make two pale tunnels through the snowfall. For a few seconds it keeps pace, tires pushing through a layer of white. Then it falls behind and disappears near a dark filling station. Your train continues without hesitation. The conductor passes along the corridor, his steps balanced easily against the motion. Through the glass panel in your door, you see the polished visor of his cap and the silver chain of his watch. He pauses at each compartment, answering questions in a tone that suggests the railway has considered every possible difficulty, including the weather, the hour, and the nervous imagination of passengers. A curious footnote of winter railway life concerns the small brushes sometimes kept near carriage entrances. Passengers could remove snow from hats and shoulders before carrying it into the elegant interior. This was sensible, although it also meant that entering a fine train might begin with several adults politely sweeping one another like pieces of furniture. You lean closer to the window as the line curves. The carriages ahead become visible, a chain of glowing rectangles bending through the storm. Steam from the locomotive trails above them, tinted orange by distant industrial lights. For a moment, the whole train resembles a moving village, complete with bedrooms, kitchens, dining tables, and strangers live in temporary lives under one roof. A signal tower rises beside the tracks. Its windows glow high above the snow, and inside you glimpse the shape of a man standing near a row of levers. Signals govern the movement of trains through junctions and busy stretches of line, allowing crews to know when the track ahead is clear. Tonight, each lamp must be watched carefully, since blowing snow can soften its colour and reduce visibility. The locomotive whistle sounds. It reaches you as a long, rounded note, powerful at first, then fading across open ground. A second later, another sound answers from far away, perhaps from a crossing, perhaps from a factory, or perhaps only from the wind moving around some hidden structure. Researchers remain divided over how fully railway crews could anticipate the effects of major winter storms during this period. Weather reports existed, and experienced workers understood local dangers, yet forecasting lacked the detailed radar images and rapid updates familiar today. Decisions often depended upon observation, telephones, station reports, and the judgment of people who knew the line. You consider this while watching the snow thicken. It no longer falls in separate flakes. It forms pale moving sheets, closing and opening around the train, Fence posts emerge beside the track, stand visible for a breath, then vanish behind you. Telegraph poles march into the distance with black wires sagging between them. A road crossing approaches. A small bell rings outside, faint through the glass. The train slows only slightly. A wooden gate blocks the road, and two bundled figures wait beside a truck with snow piling on its hood. One lifts a hand as the locomotive passes, whether the gesture is greeting, admiration, or simple relief that the crossing will soon reopen is impossible to tell. Your compartment tilts gently as the train enters another curve. The pencil on the table rolls toward the timetable, touches it, and stops. The curtains sway a little, somewhere nearby. A spoon taps against a cup. The last dense cluster of houses slips away. Fields now stretch beyond the window, broad and almost featureless under the storm. Bare trees stand at their edges, branches holding thin lines of snow. A farmhouse appears on a rise, with one porch lamp glowing beside the door. The light remains visible for several seconds, then fades into the white distance. You settle deeper into the velvet seat. The station, the streets, and the crowded city seem less real with every mile. Their sounds have been replaced by rails, wind, and the slow working pulse of the locomotive. Ahead lies a long northern darkness. Around you, polished wood holds the warmth, and beneath you, the wheels continue their calm, repeating song. A soft chime travels through the carriage, followed by the low voice of an attendant announcing that dinner is ready. The words seem to float along the corridor, calm and formal, as though the storm has been invited to wait outside until the final course is served. You rise from the velvet seat and straighten your clothes in the small mirror. The train leans gently through a curve, and your reflection moves with it. One hand steadies against the polished wall, while the other adjusts a sleeve. Dressing for dinner on solid ground is ordinary. Dressing for dinner while crossing snowy countryside requires a little diplomacy with gravity. The corridor glows beneath shaded lamps. Compartment doors remain closed, though quiet movement stirs behind them. A latch clicks. A gentleman steps out wearing a dark evening jacket, followed by a woman with a silver clasp in her hair. Farther along, a family gathers near the connecting door. The youngest child staring solemnly at the shifting floor. You join the slow procession toward the dining car. Passing between carriages brings a brief change in sound. The protected platform beneath your feet shakes more sharply, and the metal walls answer with hollow echoes. Through a narrow pane of glass, snow twists in the darkness. The next door opens, and warmth folds around you again. The dining car appears like a small, glowing restaurant carried through the night. White cloth covers every table. Crystal glasses catch the amber light, while silver cutlery rests in careful lines beside folded napkins. Small lamps with pleated shades create private circles of brightness. The windows are dark mirrors edged with frost, reflecting faces, flowers, and the steady movement of uniformed waiters. A steward greets you and leads you to a table for two, though the opposite place remains empty. He draws out the chair with practiced grace. As you sit, the train gives a measured sway, and the glassware trembles without falling. Everything has been designed to move, yet nothing appears unsettled. A vase at the centre of the table holds 3 pale carnations. Their scent mingles with roasted meat, warm bread, coffee, and the faint, clean fragrance of starched linen. Beyond the nearby partition, plates arrive beneath shining metal covers. The steward presents a printed dinner card. Its lettering is elegant, and the choices seem generous for a kitchen travelling at speed through a blizzard. There is clear soup, baked fish, roast beef, potatoes, winter vegetables, salad, and several desserts. You select the roast beef, though the baked fish receives a respectful moment of consideration. Historical records confirm that major passenger railways operated remarkably organised dining services during the middle 20th century. Food had to be stored, prepared, cooked, plated, and served inside narrow-moving kitchens. Crews worked around heat, sharp utensils, boiling liquids, and sudden curves, all while maintaining the calm appearance of a fine hotel dining room. A waiter places a warm roll on your bread plate. You break it open, and a small cloud of steam rises from the soft centre. Butter melts across it almost immediately. Outside, wind-driven snow covers fences and roads. Inside, you are occupied with the serious matter of whether one more roll would be excessive. The soup arrives in a shallow porcelain bowl decorated with a thin blue border. Its surface quivers gently with the rhythm of the rails. You lift the spoon carefully and taste onion, herbs, and rich stock. The warmth moves through you slowly, settling it in your chest. Across the aisle, two elderly sisters study their dinner card with great concentration. One points toward a dessert while the other shakes her head. Their disagreement appears intense, but silent. Nearby, a travelling salesman tells his companion that he can judge any railway by its coffee. His companion listens with the patient expression of someone who has heard this theory many times. Oddly enough, dining car staff sometimes develop special techniques for pouring drinks during rough travel. An experienced waiter could sense the movement of the carriage and tilt the pot at just the right moment. This skill prevented coffee from reaching the tablecloth, the passenger, or some unfortunate person seated several feet away. Your main course arrives beneath a polished cover. The waiter lifts it, releasing the fragrance of beef, gravy, and roasted vegetables. The plate has been arranged with careful balance. Slices of meat rest beside potatoes browned at the edges, while carrots and green beans add bright colour beneath the golden lamp. You place the napkin across your lap and begin. The beef is tender, the potatoes crisp, and the gravy carries a hint of pepper. Each bite feels unusually satisfying, perhaps because the landscape beyond the glass looks so thoroughly frozen. Comfort becomes more vivid when winter is close enough to touch but cannot reach you. The dining car tilts slightly as the train crosses a set of switches. Forks pause above plates, glasses lean, recover, and settle. No one comments. A room full of passengers simply adjust together, their bodies moving with the carriage like reeds in a slow current. Scholars continue to debate whether railway dining represented genuine democratic elegance or carefully staged luxury. Some argue that the shared dining car allowed strangers from different regions to meet under unusually refined conditions. Others note that cost, custom, and social rules still shaped who received the finest service. The truth seems mixed, polished, and placed beneath a silver cover. A waiter clears your plate and offers dessert. You choose warm apple pie with cream. The crust breaks softly beneath the fork, revealing cinnamon-scented fruit. The cream gathers along one edge of the plate as the train sways, then slides back again. It is a quiet little tide, governed by the mountains still many miles away. Coffee follows in a heavy cup designed to resist tipping. You wrap both hands around it and feel the heat through the porcelain. Outside, a cluster of houses appears beside the line. Their windows shine briefly, then dissolve into snow. Conversation in the dining car grows softer. Knives and forks make gentle sounds against china. A child yawns behind one hand. The salesman finally drinks his coffee and nods with grave approval, granting the railway whatever honour his private system allows. You take the final bite of pie. The storm presses against the dark glass, but the lamps remain steady. Silver gleams, linen rests smooth beneath your hands. The entire room glides onward with quiet confidence, carrying its flowers, its warm plates, and its sleepy passengers through the white northern night. You leave the dining car at an unhurried pace, carrying the warmth of coffee and cinnamon with you. The connecting passage gives a low metallic groan beneath your feet, and the steady beat of the wheels grows louder for several seconds. Then another door opens, and the sound becomes softer again, wrapped in carpet, wood, and thick upholstery. The corridor is quieter now. Some passengers have returned to their compartments, while others linger near the windows, watching darkness move beyond the glass. A man in a brown suit stands with both hands behind his back, studying the storm as if expecting it to explain itself. It does not. You continue toward a small sitting area near the centre of the carriage. 2 armchairs face a broad window, and one remains empty. The lamp above it casts a circle of honey-coloured light across the fabric. You sit, rest one hand on the padded arm, and let the movement of the train arrange your breathing. The rails speak beneath you in a repeated pattern. A firm pair of sounds arrives, followed by a softer pause. Another pair answers. The sequence continues without hurry, stretching through the floor, the chair, and the bones of your feet. Every joint in the track adds its note. Every wheel repeats the message. You do not need to understand it. The rhythm simply carries you. Beyond the window, the countryside appears in fragments. A stone wall rises from the snow, follows the line for a few moments, and fades. Bare trees gather near a frozen pond. Their branches lean in the wind, black against a sky coloured faintly grey by the storm. Now and then, a farmhouse emerges from the darkness. One upstairs window glows. A barn roof bends under fresh snow. A porch lamp forms a small golden circle around a buried step. These quiet homes seem almost suspended in the night, each one complete within its own little world. The train passes without disturbing them. Railway engineers of the 1940s rely on heavy steel wheels shaped to remain guided by the rails. The narrow inner edge of each wheel helps keep the train aligned, while the slight angle of the wheel's surface assists movement through curves. The design appears simple, yet it allows immense carriages to travel smoothly across long distances. You feel that careful engineering each time the line bends. The chair shifts beneath you. Your body leans almost without instruction. The glass darkens, brightens, then darkens again as trackside lamps pass at regular intervals. Farther ahead, the locomotive releases a long call into the night. Its voice travels across the fields. A dog begins barking near an unseen house. The sound reaches you faintly through the walls, then disappears behind the train. For a moment, you wonder whether the animal always announces the evening service. Treating the timetable as a personal insult, the wheels continue their measured conversation. Oddly enough, many passengers once claimed they could recognise particular stretches of track by sound alone. Bridges produced hollow thunder. Switches created quick bursts of clattering, and smooth rails offered a quieter hum. A seasoned traveller might wake in darkness and know the train had entered a city yard simply because the rhythm changed beneath the pillow. You close your eyes and listen more carefully. The ordinary beat is joined by smaller sounds. A panel gives a soft creak near the ceiling. A curtain ring taps against its brass rod. Somewhere along the carriage, a door latch clicks twice. The heating pipes murmur beneath the wall. None of these sounds feels intrusive. Together they form a gentle mechanical weather inside the train, predictable and contained. The track rises slightly. You notice the locomotive working harder, though the change is subtle. Its exhaust deepens, and the carriage pulls with firmer purpose. The wheels lose none of their patience. They continue to strike each joint with the same calm certainty. Outside, a line of telegraph poles follows the route. Snow clings to one side of every post, creating pale vertical stripes in the darkness. The wires tremble between them, vanishing into distance. Researchers still disagree about how much the comfort of early sleeping trains depended upon technical design and how much depended upon human expectation. Improved suspension, better track, and stronger carriages certainly reduced harsh movement. Yet passengers who believed they were travelling in luxury may also have interpreted every sway as soothing rather than inconvenient. Comfort, it seems, can begin in the machinery and finish in the mind. Your breathing gradually matches the rails. 2 quiet beats. A pause. 2 quiet beats. The pattern settles beneath thought itself. Concerns that seemed important at the station now feel strangely distant. They cannot keep pace with the train. Each mile leaves them standing somewhere behind a snow-covered fence, waving papers that no longer require your attention. A small river appears beside the line. Moonlight cannot reach it through the clouds, but the carriage lamps reveal brief flashes of dark water between shelves of ice. The train follows the bank, curving gently with the current. Then comes a bridge. The sound changes at once. The steady rhythm opens into a deep rolling thunder beneath the carriage. The floor vibrates more strongly. Iron supports past the window in quick black lines. You sense empty space below, broad and cold, while the river moves unseen beneath the snow. The crossing lasts only moments. Solid ground returns, and the familiar beat gathers itself again. You open your eyes. The armchair still holds you comfortably. A faint reflection floats in the window, your face surrounded by the dim interior, while the landscape slips through it like a dream. A porter walks past carrying folded blankets. His footsteps briefly join the rhythm, then drift away. Farther down the carriage, someone turns a page. Another passenger whispers goodnight through a half-open door. You remain by the window. Snow moves in long silver streams beside the train. Fields widen, trees thin, and the nearest road disappears from view. There is only the line ahead, the darkness around it, and the warm carriage balanced upon steel. Your eyelids grow heavier. The rails continue counting miles that you no longer need to count, and the great train rocks you gently through the sleeping countryside, steady as a cradle, certain as a clock, and patient enough to carry every wandering thought into silence. The corridor widens into the lounge car, where the light is lower and the voice is softer. Deep chairs face one another in small groups, their arms rounded and generous. A long carpet runs beneath your feet, patterned with dark green leaves and gold lines that seem to ripple gently whenever the carriage sways. At the far end, a lamp glows behind amber glass. Its colour resembles firelight, though there is no open flame. Brass fittings shine along the walls, and the ceiling curves overhead in smooth panels. Heavy curtains frame the windows, leaving enough glass exposed for you to see snow racing beside the train. You choose a chair near a small table and settle into its warmth. The cushion gives a quiet sigh beneath you. Someone has placed a bowl of wrapped mints beside a stack of magazines, and a silver ashtray rests nearby, polished to an almost ceremonial brightness. A steward approaches and offers tea, coffee, or warm milk. You ask for tea. He nods as if this is the most sensible decision made anywhere on the railway that evening. Across from you sits a woman in a plum-coloured dress, her hands folded over a small handbag. She appears to be travelling alone beside her. An older man with a neat white moustache studies a newspaper without turning the page. Near the window, 2 brothers in matching wool coats play cards on a folding table, each watching the other with deep suspicion. The steward returns with your tea in a thick porcelain cup. Steam rises toward your face, carrying the scent of black leaves and lemon. You hold the saucer steady as the train enters a long curve and place it carefully on the table. The woman in the plum dress smiles. She asks whether you are travelling all the way toward the mountains. When you say that you're bound for Stowe, her expression brightens. She tells you that she spent part of her childhood in Vermont, where winters arrived early and left only when they had made their point. Her voice is calm and lightly amused. She remembers mornings when frost covered the inside of bedroom windows. She remembers maple trees standing black against deep snow and horses breathing clouds into the air. She also remembers carrying firewood before breakfast, which she describes as an excellent cure for romantic ideas about country life. The man with the newspaper lowers it. He says he once worked on a railway line in northern New England. His job involved inspecting signals and reporting damage caused by storms. The work required long hours, cold hands, and the ability to drink coffee that had been reheated more times than anyone wished to admit. Major railroads of the period depended upon large teams of workers who remained mostly invisible to passengers. Track inspectors, signal operators, dispatchers, mechanics, cooks, cleaners, and station agents kept trains moving across immense distances. A luxurious journey rested upon their discipline, especially during severe weather. The man folds his newspaper and places it beside him. He describes a night when snow covered the rails so completely that the lines seemed to vanish into the landscape. The locomotive moved slowly while workers walked ahead with lanterns. Every few yards, they cleared packed snow from a switch or checked that ice had not locked a mechanism in place. No one in the lounge interrupts him. Even the card game becomes quieter. You picture those lanterns moving through the white darkness, each small light surrounded by wind. The image is not frightening, it feels steady and human. Somewhere outside the elegant carriage, people understand the storm in practical terms. They know where ice gathers, where drifts form, and which sounds from the rails deserve attention. One curious footnote concerns railway passengers who carried their own favourite pillows despite travelling in first-class comfort. Some brought embroidered cases, medicinal cushions, or small feather pillows from home. Luxury, it seems, could provide almost everything except the exact shape your neck had already negotiated with for 20 years. The younger of the card-playing brothers overhears this and admits that he has packed a hot water bottle. His brother laughs until the woman in the plum dress calmly says she has packed two. The laughter that follows is gentle rather than loud. The conversation drifts toward winter travel. One passenger remembers a sleigh ride in Maine. Another recalls becoming stranded in a rural inn where the owner served the same stew for 3 days. A quiet gentleman near the wall says he once spent 6 hours in a station waiting room beside a parrot that knew only one sentence, and unfortunately used it often. You never learn what the sentence was. Perhaps this is for the best. The train passes through a shallow cutting, and snow briefly fills the windows like white smoke. The lounge lamps remain steady. Teacups tremble in their saucers. The card players place 2 fingers on the deck to keep it from sliding. The woman beside you opens her handbag and removes a small photograph. It shows a wooden house with a steep roof, a porch, and 2 bare trees. Snow covers the yard. A child stands near the gate, bundled so heavily that only a small oval of face remains visible. She tells you the house belonged to her grandparents. It stood near a road where horse-drawn sleighs continued to appear even after motorcars became common. In winter, the bells could be heard long before the horses came into view. You study the photograph and return it carefully. Historians continue to argue about whether stories told aboard trains should be treated as reliable social evidence or as memories polished by time. Personal recollections can preserve details missing from official records, yet memory often reshapes events into cleaner, stranger, or more meaningful forms. A childhood winter may grow deeper with every telling. The man with the white moustache agrees. He says snow was always higher when remembered from a warm chair. Outside, the wind sweeps loose powder from the fields. It curls around fence posts and runs in pale ribbons beside the train. Inside, the passengers sit close enough to share stories but far enough apart to preserve the quiet dignity of strangers. The steward dims one of the lamps. A few people rise and return to their compartments. The brothers finish their card game without revealing who has won. The gentleman near the wall closes his eyes, perhaps dreaming of the talkative parrot. You take the final sip of tea. The cup is no longer hot, but warmth remains in your hands, around you. Voices fade into murmurs, and the lounge car settles into a softer mood. The stories linger in the air like the scent of lemon and wool. Each one joins the motion of the train carried north through the lizard, while the amber lamps glow against the glass and the night listens from beyond the snow. A stronger gust strikes the side of the carriage, and the windows answer with a low shudder. The sound is not sharp enough to alarm anyone, yet it changes the mood of the train. Snow no longer drifts past in soft ribbons. It drives against the glass in dense, slanting waves, erasing the landscape beyond. You stand near the lounge window and watch the outside world disappear. For several seconds, there is nothing but white movement. Then a telegraph pole emerges suddenly, dark and close, before vanishing behind the carriage. Another follows. Their wires bow under the weight of ice, trembling in the wind like thin black strings. The train presses onwards. Its pace remains steady, but the motion feels more deliberate now. The locomotive pulls with a deeper force, and each turn of the wheels carries a faint grinding note beneath the familiar rhythm. Snow gathers along the lower window frame, building a pale ridge that rises almost to the glass. A porter moves through the lounge, checking the latches. He tests one window with his gloved hand, then draws the curtain more tightly across its edge. His face remains calm. He has probably seen storms that frightened passengers, delayed schedules, and filled every corridor with questions. Tonight he offers only a quiet reassurance. The train is still moving well. You return to your compartment as the carriage sways through another gust. The corridor lights flicker once, recover, and continue glowing. A woman opens her door and asks whether everything is all right. The attendant answers with such confidence that even the storm seems slightly embarrassed by its behaviour. Inside your compartment, the wind sounds different. It moves around the walls in long, hollow breaths. Snow taps against the glass like handfuls of dry sand. The heating pipes click beneath the basin, working patiently against the cold. You lower the shade halfway, leaving a narrow strip of window visible. Through it, the world appears stripped of detail. Roads have vanished beneath fresh snow. Fences are buried to their upper rails. Small trees bend beneath white weight, their branches shaking whenever the wind rises. Official railway reports from severe winter seasons show that drifting snow could become more dangerous than snowfall itself. Wind pushed loose powder into deep banks across exposed tracks, especially in open fields and narrow cuts. A line that looked clear 1 hour could be blocked soon afterward, forcing crews to slow, stop, or send equipment ahead. You feel the train reduce speed slightly. The change is gentle but unmistakable. The steady wheel rhythm stretches farther apart. The carriage no longer glides past the storm. It seems to test each mile before accepting it. A signal lamp appears ahead, glowing through the white darkness. At first, it is only a blurred green circle, then it sharpens as the train approaches, shining above a post almost buried at its base. The light passes your window and disappears, leaving a brief green reflection on the polished wall. The locomotive whistle sounds again. Its call is longer now, aimed toward a crossing hidden somewhere beyond the snow. No answering bell reaches you. The wind may have swallowed it, or the crossing itself may be too deeply buried to make any sound at all. A curious habit among some winter travellers involved tying bright cloth to luggage handles before departure. In crowded stations, this helped them recognise their cases quickly. During heavy snow, however, the cloth sometimes collected enough frost to become a stiff little flag, proudly identifying a suitcase that no one wished to carry outside. The thought brings a small smile. You imagine rows of luggage wearing frozen ribbons while porters maintained perfect dignity. Another gust pushes against the carriage. The train leans almost imperceptibly, then settles. A cup on the table slides half an inch and stops against the raised wooden edge. The lamp above you swings gently, making the compartment shadows move like slow water. Farther along the line, brakes begin to whisper. The sound rises beneath the floor, soft at first, then firmer. The train slows again as it enters a stretch bordered by tall trees. Their trunks appear through the storm in quick, dark flashes. Snow pours from their branches whenever the wind shakes them, filling the space between the forest and the railway. No broad agreement exists among historians about how often railway companies underestimated major winter storms during this era. Some scholars point to impressive preparation, experienced crews, and equipment built for harsh conditions. Others argue that schedules and commercial pressure sometimes encouraged trains to continue when caution suggested delay. From your warm seat, both arguments seem reasonable. A railway cannot surrender to every cloud, yet a blizzard has little respect for printed timetables. The carriage gives a sudden, heavy bump. Your hand reaches instinctively for the table. The lamp trembles, and somewhere in the corridor a suitcase shifts against a wall. Then the motion smooths again. A knock sounds at your door. The conductor enters after you answer. Snow has melted into dark spots across the shoulders of his coat, suggesting that he has recently stepped into a colder part of the train. He explains that wind has blown powder across several stretches of track. The locomotive crew is proceeding carefully, and a maintenance team farther north is checking the line. His manner remains composed. There is no emergence. There may be a delay. The word delay hangs in the compartment with remarkable weight, as railway words often do. It means uncertainty, altered connections, and passengers consulting watches as though staring might improve the weather. You have nowhere to be except inside this journey. The conductor closes the door, and you return your attention to the narrow strip of window. Snow presses against it so thickly that the glass resembles frosted marble. Occasionally the train passes close to a lamp or a building, and a pale shape glows within the white, then fades. A rural road crosses the line. 2 warning lamps blink beside it, nearly buried in drifts. A truck waits several yards back, its roof and hood covered in snow. The driver sits motionless behind the windshield, watching the train pass like a dark procession through the storm. The final carriage clears the road. The truck remains where it is. The wind strengthens again, rushing over the roof with a low roar. Beneath it, the wheels continue turning, slower but steady. Every axle, coupling, and length of rail seems to work against the night with quiet determination. You draw the shade lower. Only a thin line of white remains visible near the sill. The compartment becomes warmer, smaller, and more peaceful. The storm continues beyond the walls, bearing roads, signals, and sleeping fields beneath its restless weight. Inside, the brass lamp glows. The train moves forward 1 careful mile at a time. The brakes tighten with a long metallic whisper, and the motion beneath you begins to fade. The wheels turn more slowly, each rotation separated by a wider silence, until the train glides beneath a row of dim lamps and comes to rest. For a moment, nothing moves except the storm. Wind sends snow across the window in twisting sheets. A wooden station building stands beyond the glass, small and dark beneath a roof burdened with white. 2 lanterns hang under the eaves, their flames trembling behind cloudy panes. They cast weak golden circles onto drifts that have nearly swallowed the platform. You lift the shade and lean closer. A sign carries the name of the station, but ice covers several letters. The place appears to have been forgotten by the rest of the world. No road is visible, no houses can be seen. Only the station, the tracks, and a narrow line of telegraph poles remain against the white night. The carriage settles into stillness. Without the rolling rhythm, new sounds become clear. Steam hisses along the train, wind scratches loose snow against the walls, somewhere beneath the floor. Metal contracts with a faint ticking noise. A porter walks past your door carrying a storm lantern. Its light moves across the corridor panels and disappears toward the end of the carriage. You follow at a respectful distance, curious about the pause. Near the entrance, several passengers stand in coats and slippers. The combination is not especially dignified, though everyone behaves as if it were perfectly normal. One man has wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. A woman wears a fur hat above a pale sleeping gown. Nobody comments. A blizzard has a way of suspending certain rules of fashion. The conductor opens the outer door. Cold air enters at once and sharp and clean. carrying the scent of snow, coal smoke, and pine. It touches your face from several yards away. Outside, railway workers step through drifts that reach nearly to their knees. One raises a lantern toward the locomotive, another bends beside a switch, clearing packed snow from the moving rails with a long iron tool. Their coats whip in the wind, each man works slowly, planting his boots carefully before taking another step. Railway operations in the 1940s depend heavily upon local station agents during storms. These workers report track conditions, relay messages by telephone or telegraph, protect switches, and help coordinate passing trains. At isolated stops, one agent may carry responsibilities that would normally be shared by several people at a larger terminal. The station door opens. A tall figure emerges beneath a broad cap, holding a green lantern in one hand and a bundle of papers under the other arm. Snow gathers instantly across his shoulders. He crosses the platform and speaks with the conductor. Though the wind tears their words away before they reach you, their lanterns sway together in the darkness. Behind them, a baggage cart stands frozen beside the wall. Its wheels are half buried, and one handle points upward through the drift. A wooden crate sits on top, covered by a canvas sheet stiff with ice. A curious footnote of rural railway life concerns station cats. Many small depots kept cats to discourage mice from settling among sacks, parcels, and stored food. Some animals became local celebrities, greeting passengers and sleeping near office stoves. Tonight, any sensible station cat is almost certainly indoors, supervising the storm from a warm chair. The man wrapped in the blanket whispers that the train may be waiting for another locomotive. The woman in the fur hat says it may be taking on water. A third passenger claims that a fallen tree blocks the line. None of them possesses evidence, but uncertainty has always been fertile soil for confident theories. The station agent climbs aboard. He carries the smell of cold wool and wet leather into the corridor. Snow clings to his eyebrows and melts along the brim of his cap. He speaks quietly with the conductor, then unfolds a paper against the wall. A lamp is brought closer. Both men study a series of handwritten notes while the passengers pretend not to listen. A maintenance crew has cleared the next switch. Drifts remain heavy along an exposed cutting farther north. The train must wait until a track inspector completes his report. The news moves through the gathered passengers in soft murmurs. Watches appear from pockets. Questions follow. The conductor answers with patient formality, explaining that safety comes before the schedule. Scholars disagree over whether small railway stations should be remembered mainly as practical transport centres or as social gathering places for isolated communities. Timetables and freight records reveal their official purpose, yet letters and local memories describe stations as places where news arrived, neighbours met, and distant events suddenly felt close. Through the open door, you can sense that importance. The station agent returns to the platform and walks toward the office. Inside, a stove glows red behind a window. Shelves hold ledgers, signal flags, and parcels wrapped in brown paper. A wall clock hangs above a desk, its hands showing several minutes past midnight. A young railway worker carries a metal can toward the locomotive. He pauses to stamp snow from his boots, then disappears into steam near the front of the train. Another worker checks the wheels with a long hammer, tapping metal and listening to the answer. Each strike produces a clear ringing note. The sound travels down the platform and fades beneath the wind. You step nearer the doorway but remain inside. The cold gathers around your ankles. Snowflakes enter, spin across the floor, and melt into dark marks on the carpet. The storm beyond the platform looks limitless. Pine trees stand at the edge of the lantern light, their branches bowed heavily. A narrow path disappears between them, though no traveller seems likely to use it tonight. Then a telephone rings inside the station office. The sound is faint, but every railway worker reacts. The agent lifts the receiver. He listens without moving, writes something in a ledger, and looks toward the train. A moment later, He steps outside and raises his green lantern. The conductor calls for the doors to be closed. Passengers return to their compartments, carrying blankets, questions, and a little disappointment that nothing more dramatic has occurred. The outer door shuts firmly, sealing away the cold. You walk back through the corridor. The train remains still for another breath. Then the locomotive releases a deep burst of steam. Couplings tighten from carriage to carriage with a sequence of muffled knocks. The wheels begin to turn, slowly at first, pressing polished steel against rails newly cleared of snow. The isolated station starts to drift away. Its lanterns grow smaller behind the storm. The agent stands beneath the eaves, holding his green light high until the final carriage passes. Soon only darkness fills the window again. The midnight stop dissolves into snow, leaving behind a warm stove, a buried platform, and one steady clock continuing to measure the night. The line begins to climb with such quiet determination that you notice it first in the sound rather than the view. The locomotive works in a deeper register, and the floor beneath your feet carries a firmer vibration. Each wheel seems to press more carefully against the rails, gripping the cold steel as the train enters the mountain country. You raise the shade. Dark slopes gather beyond the window, their shapes almost hidden by snow. Tall pines crowd close to the track, branches sagging beneath heavy white layers. When the wind moves through them, loose powder falls in sudden clouds, flashing pale in the carriage light before disappearing beneath the wheels. The train bends around a long curve. For several moments, you can see the forward carriages climbing ahead, their windows glowing in a gentle chain. Steam trails above them and spreads across the trees. The locomotive itself remains partly hidden, but its presence fills the night with a steady pulse of effort. Mountain railways demand patience. A train cannot simply charge uphill because the timetable appears ambitious. The grade, the weight of the carriages, the condition of the rails, and the strength of the engine all set firm limits. During winter, snow and ice make every calculation more serious. Railway practice in steep country often included the use of sand for traction. Sand was released onto the rail in front of the driving wheels when steel became slippery. This simple method helped locomotives climb grades that cold moisture might otherwise make dangerous. You imagine the sand falling in a narrow stream beneath the engine, disappearing instantly into snow and darkness. Such a small substance supports such a grand machine. History has always had a sense of humour about scale. The compartment tilts slightly as the train enters another bend. Your cup shifts against its holder, and the curtain brushes the wall. Outside, the forest drops away. A valley opens below. Moonlight finds a weakness in the clouds and spreads across the distant slopes. Snowfields shine with a pale blue glow. A river lies somewhere at the bottom, mostly hidden, though a thin, dark line reveals where the current still moves between banks of ice. The view lasts only a few breaths. Trees close around the track again, and the train enters a narrow cut through rock. Stone walls rise on both sides, their ledges holding frozen shelves of snow. Icicles hang beside the rails, long and clear, catching the passing light like rows of glass teeth. The wheels strike a rougher stretch of track. Sound rises around you, louder and more enclosed. Every turning axle sends an echo against the stone. The whole train seems to speak at once, filling the passage with iron rhythm. Then the cut widens, the noise falls away. A small bridge appears ahead, spanning a gorge too dark to measure. The locomotive whistle sounds before the crossing, one long note that travels into the ravine and returns in a softened reply. You lean toward the glass. Below, a mountain stream moves beneath broken ice. Snow gathers on boulders, giving each one a round white cap. Wind pushes through the gorge and lifts powder into spirals. The bridge begins. The carriage vibrates with a low, rolling thunder. Wooden beams and steel supports pass beneath you. For a moment, there is only the knowledge of open space, the river below, and the train balanced on a path built across emptiness. No one in the corridor speaks. The crossing ends gently and solid ground returns. Oddly enough, railway crews in mountain regions sometimes learn to judge snow conditions by sound. Fresh powder made one kind of whisper beneath equipment, while packed snow and hidden ice produced sharper resistance. Experience gave workers an ear for danger that instruments of the time could not always match. A red lantern appears beside the line. The train slows. Through the swirling snow, you see a small group of workers standing near a switch. One holds a shovel, another raises a signal lamp. Their coats are dusted white from shoulder to boot, and steam from their breath gathers around their faces. The locomotive moves past them at walking speed. You watch one worker inspect the wheels as they pass. His eyes follow every carriage. When your window reaches him, he gives a short nod, not to you in particular, but to the train as a whole. The line steepens again. You feel the engine pull harder, and a second mechanical rhythm joins the first, somewhere near the front. Another locomotive may be assisting, or the main engine may simply be working with greater force. The distinction is difficult to hear from your warm compartment, but the result is clear. The train climbs. Researchers remain split over whether mountain railways should be praised mainly as feats of engineering or examined more cautiously for the way they altered remote landscapes. Bridges, cuts, tunnels, and embankments connected isolated communities and opened new routes for trade. They also changed forests, rivers, and patterns of settlement. Both truths travel beside you. Human skill has carried the train into country once crossed only by narrow paths, yet the mountains remain vast enough to make the railway seem temporary. A tunnel mouth appears ahead. It looks like a black arch cut into the white slope. Snow gathers above it in a thick, overhanging bank. The locomotive whistle sounds twice, and the first carriages vanish into darkness. Your window reaches the entrance. The world outside disappears at once. Sound fills the compartment. Wheels, exhaust, and carriage joints combine into a deep, continuous roar. The lamps reflect in the glass, turning the compartment into a bright little room surrounded by blackness. You can see only your own face and the brass lamp behind you. The tunnel air presses close beyond the wall. Then a pale circle grows ahead. It expands quickly, turning from grey to white. The train bursts back into the storm, and the windows fill with snow again. Beyond the tunnel, the land is higher and more open. The forest thins along the ridge, wind drives across bare slopes with almost no obstacle. Snow lies in sculpted waves, some smooth as folded cloth, others sharp along the crest. The train moves carefully along the mountainside. Far below, hiratted lights mark a settlement in the valley. They appear tiny, warm, and strangely peaceful. A church tower rises among them, barely visible beneath its white roof. You rest your head against the seat. The locomotive keeps its steady labour. The rails curve through the high country, carrying you between dark peaks and sleeping valleys. Above, clouds move slowly across the moon. Below, rivers lie quiet beneath ice. And around you, the mountain night closes gently over the train as it climbs through the white mountains, one patient mile at a time. The mountain darkness presses close to the glass, but the compartment remains a small kingdom of order. Frost feathers the corners of the window in delicate white patterns, turning the passing world into something half seen and half imagined. You draw one finger near the cold pane without touching it. Beyond the clear centre, trees drift past as blurred shadows. Snow rises around their trunks, and wind sweeps loose powder across the line in silver clouds. The storm appears less like weather now, and more like a moving dream. Inside, every surface seems designed to resist disorder. The brass lamp shines across the polished wood. Your folded clothes rest inside the wardrobe. The glass stands safely in its metal ring. Even the pencil lies against the raised edge of the table, prevented from beginning a private journey across the floor. You open a narrow full cabinet beneath the wash basin and discover a small supply of towels, a clothes brush, and a paper packet containing sewing thread and 2 buttons. The railway seems prepared for almost every domestic emergency except a complete loss of good judgment. A second compartment door stands hidden within the wall. It connects to the room beside yours, though it remains firmly locked. Families or travelling companions could reserve adjoining spaces and open the passage between them. For a single traveller, the sealed door simply adds another polished panel to the room. You test the reading lamp beside the seat. Its switch gives a satisfying click. The light brightens, then softens when you turn the small brass control. You choose a low setting, just enough to illuminate your book without disturbing the shadows. The result is wonderfully calm. The finest sleeping cars of this period often used carefully planned ventilation and heating systems to keep passengers comfortable through changing climates. A train might leave a damp city, cross frozen uplands, and enter a warmer valley before morning. Temperature control was never perfect, but it represented a major improvement over older carriages heated unevenly by stoves. The vent near your feet sends out a steady breath of warm air. You remove your shoes and place them beneath the seat. The carpet feels thick through your stockings. Each step sinks slightly into the woven surface, muffling your movement. Outside, the wind may roar across exposed slopes, but inside the compartment, even your footsteps have been persuaded to whisper. A knock arrives at the door. The sleeping car attendant enters carrying a tray covered with a white cloth. On it rests a glass bottle of water, a small bowl of fruit, and 2 biscuits wrapped in wax paper. He places the tray on the table and checks the heating controls. He also notices a faint draft near the window. From his pocket, he produces a narrow strip of felt and presses it along the frame. The cold movement stops almost immediately. The repair is simple, quiet, and remarkably effective. Luxury, you realise, often depends less upon grand decoration than upon someone noticing the tiny discomforts before you need to mention them. A curious footnote from railway travel concerns the special ladders used to reach upper berths. Some were fixed to the wall, while others could be attached only when needed. Passengers occasionally forgot where the first step was in the darkness, and began their morning with a search that lacked both grace and dignity. You thank the attendant, and he asks whether you would like the room prepared for sleeping. You choose to wait a little longer. There are still corners to inspect. Yes, Inspect. Above the seat, a shallow shelf holds 2 wool blankets secured by leather straps. Their edges are trimmed with dark thread, and the railway emblem appears on a small cloth label. You release one strap and draw the top blanket across your knees. The wool is slightly rough beneath your fingers, but its weight is comforting. It carries the clean scent of soap and dry storage. You settle deeper into the seat while the carriage moves through another long curve. The frost pattern shifts beside you. Warmth from the compartment clears a narrow crescent near the centre of the glass. Through it, a frozen lake appears below the track. Snow covers most of the surface, though dark patches reveal wind-polished ice. A line of small cabins stands along the distant shore, each roof nearly blending into the white ground. Then the lake slips away. Arguments divide historians over whether luxury trains created genuine privacy or merely the illusion of it. Compartments offered doors, curtains, and personal service, yet walls remained thin, corridors narrow, and strangers never far away. You could close yourself inside a beautiful room, but the cough next door might still remind you that civilization was travelling in close formation. As if summoned by the thought, someone sneezes in the neighbouring compartment. A polite silence follows. Then another sneeze arrives. You smile and unfold one of the wax paper packets. The biscuit inside is crisp and lightly sweet. Tiny crumbs fall onto the plate rather than the carpet, which feels like a minor victory for civilized travel. You pour water into the glass. The bottle has been cooled by the compartment air near the window, and moisture gathers on its surface. The water tastes clean and faintly metallic, perhaps from the cap. The train passes beneath a covered structure, possibly a solar shed built to protect the tracks where drifting is severe. For several seconds, the window fills with dark wooden beams. Their shadows move across the compartment in rapid bands. Then the white landscape returns. You walk to the corridor and open the door quietly. The sleeping car has settled into near silence. Lamps burn low along the walls. Several pairs of shoes wait outside compartment doors, placed neatly with their toes facing the corridor. One pair is small and red, another is so heavily polished that it reflects the ceiling light. At the far end, the attendant sits at a narrow desk, recording something in a ledger. Beside him, folded sheets form an exact white tower. He glances up, offers a calm nod, and returns to his work. You continue to the washroom at the end of the carriage. It contains another porcelain basin, a large mirror, a fresh towel, and a small vase fixed securely to the wall. Inside the vase rests a single artificial flower, chosen perhaps because real flowers dislike both frost and railway schedules. The mirror shows the gentle movement of the room. Your shoulders rise and fall with the train. The lamp swings almost invisibly above you. Behind your reflection, frost gathers along a tiny outer window, its crystals shaped like leaves and stars. You return to your compartment and close the door. The blanket settles over your knees. The lamp glows beside your shoulder. Snow continues to erase the mountain slopes, leaving only pale shapes beyond the glass. The railway has placed warm water, clean linen, polished wood, soft light, and human care between you and the wilderness. You sit inside that careful shelter, listening to the wheels carry it through the frozen night. A measured knock sounds against your compartment door. The conductor stands in the corridor with his cap held beneath one arm. His expression is composed, but a folded message rests between two fingers, and the paper has been handled often enough to lose its crisp edges. He asks whether he may enter. You make room beside the table while he closes the door behind him. The carriage rocks gently beneath both of you, yet his balance never seems to shift. Years of walking through moving trains have taught his body to answer curves before they fully arrive. He lowers his voice. A weather report has reached the crew from a station farther along the route. Wind has pushed a large drift across a mountain cutting, and another train has reported poor visibility near the summit. The line remains open, but the locomotive may need to reduce speed or stop while workers inspect the rails. There is no alarm in his manner. Still, one detail has caused concern. A signal lamp ahead has failed to respond to a routine test. The conductor explains that the lamp may simply be covered by snow, or its mechanism may have frozen. A track worker is travelling toward it from a nearby maintenance cabin. Until the signal is confirmed, the train must approach with exceptional care. You listen to the wind brushing the outer wall. The conductor assures you that the crew has procedures for such situations. The engineer will reduce speed, the fireman will watch the line, and the train will not pass the signal unless permission arrives through the proper railway channels. Railway rules in the 1940s treated uncertain signals with great seriousness. A light that could not be read clearly was not dismissed as a minor inconvenience. Crews were expected to slow or stop, since another train, damaged track, or an opened switch might lie beyond it. The conductor unfolds the message. Several lines have been written in pencil, each followed by a time. The final note mentions a maintenance worker named Henry Bell, who left the cabin with a lantern, but has not yet reported reaching the signal. The conductor glances toward the window. He says the distance is not great, though walking through deep snow can make a short mile feel remarkably ambitious. You ask whether Henry is alone. The conductor nods. The maintenance cabin has only one worker on night duty. Another crew is coming from the opposite direction, but the storm has slowed them. The situation is not dangerous yet. The word yet remains unspoken, but you can feel its shape in the quiet room. A strange railway custom once involved workers carrying small explosive warning devices that could be placed on the rails. When a locomotive wheel passed over one, the sharp report warned the engineer of danger ahead. Such devices were useful in fog, snow, or darkness, although they must have made a peaceful night unexpectedly dramatic for anyone sleeping near the track. The conductor folds the message again. He asks that you remain inside the sleeping car if the train stops. The crew needs the corridors clear, and opening exterior doors could allow snow to enter. He also advises keeping shoes and a coat within easy reach, a sensible precaution rather than a prediction of trouble. Then he offers a reassuring smile. The railway, he says, proves to prepare for events that never happen. You thank him. He steps back into the corridor and continues toward the next compartment. His quiet knock soon sounds farther down the carriage, followed by the same calm request to enter. You sit near the window. The train begins to pull. Its rhythm stretches into separate, deliberate sounds. The locomotive whistle gives one long call, then two shorter notes. They travel into the snow and return as weak echoes from the mountainside. The lights inside the compartment remain steady. Outside, visibility is narrowed to a few yards. Snow rises from the ground as quickly as it falls from the sky. Fence posts appear like brief black marks, and the forest beyond them has become a dark wall. The carriage moves at Stowe, walking peas. You can hear the wheels grinding softly against packed snow near the rails. The sound comes and goes, never loud, but different enough to hold your attention. A lantern appears beside the track. It shines red through the storm. The train stops. Steam rolls past the window, covering the red light, then revealing it again. The signal post stands only a short distance away, crusted with ice. Its upper lamp remains dark. Several minutes pass. The conductor and another crew member walk through the corridor toward the front. Both wear heavy coats. One carries a lantern, while the other holds a long metal case. Scholars remain divided over whether strict railway procedures were always followed during severe weather. Official rules were clear, but historians note that isolated crews sometimes relied upon experience, urgency, and personal judgment when communication failed. Discipline governed the system, yet human decisions still shaped every uncertain moment. You watch the red lantern outside. Its flame bends in the wind but does not vanish. Then a second light appears farther ahead. At first, it is only a faint golden point moving through the snow. It grows brighter, disappears behind a wave of steam, and returns closer to the train. A man steps into view. Snow covers his coat almost completely. He leans into the wind, lifting one boot slowly from each drift. In one hand he carries a lantern, in the other he holds a short signal flag wrapped around its staff. Henry Bell has reached the train. The conductor meets him beside the locomotive. Their voices cannot be heard through the glass, but their gestures are clear. Henry points toward the dark signal, then toward the line beyond it. He removes one glove and hands over a written note. A crew member climbs down with a tool bag. Together, the men move toward the frozen mechanism. Their lanterns circle the base of the post. One kneels beside a metal box while another clears ice from a cable. Minutes pass slowly. The wind continues to drive snow across their backs. At last, the upper signal lamp flickers. A weak green light appears, fades, then returns with greater strength. It shines through the storm like a small emerald star. Henry raises his lantern. The conductor answers. The workers step away from the track, and the locomotive releases a deep breath of steam. Couplings tighten through the train, one carriage at a time. Your compartment begins to move. The green signal glides past the window, bright against the darkness. Henry remains beside the post, holding his lantern high as snow gathers again across his shoulders. The warning has become permission. The rails carry you onward, cautiously and steadily, while the lonely signal burns behind you in the mountain night. The train advances into a broad mountain cutting where walls of dark stone rise on either side. Snow pours down from the slopes, gathering between the rails in long white ridges. The locomotive pushes into the first drifts with a heavy, muffled force. Your compartment tilts forward slightly. The wheels turn, hesitate, then turn again. Beneath the floor, metal strains against packed snow. The warm lamp remains steady, but the motion becomes uneven, as though the train is walking through deep water. Then everything stops. Steam drifts past the window and wraps the carriage in a pale cloud. When it clears, you see snow pressed high against the lower glass. The bank reaches nearly to the metal frame, smooth at the surface and dense beneath. The locomotive tries once more. A deep pull travels through every coupling. The carriage moves several feet, shudders, and settles back into silence. Somewhere near the front, the engine releases a tired breath that sounds almost offended. The conductor walks through the corridor carrying a lantern. He tells the passengers that a wind-built drift has blocked the cutting. The train is secure, the rails are level, and crews are preparing to clear a path. His tone remains calm, though his boots carry fresh snow across the carpet. You fasten your shoes and step into the corridor. Passengers gather quietly near their doors. The woman in the plum dress holds a blanket around her shoulders. One of the card-playing brothers has brought his hot water bottle, proving that private preparation sometimes defeats public confidence. No one appears frightened. The carriage is warm, the lamps are bright, and the crew knows exactly where the train has stopped. Still, the lack of movement changes the night. Without the rhythm soar of the rails, the storm seems louder and closer. Wind passes over the roof in long rushing waves. Snow scratches against the windows. A porter distributes coffee from a large metal pot. He pours carefully into thick cups while the train rests perfectly still, which must feel almost disappointingly easy after years of practicing on curves. You accept a cup and hold it between both hands. The drink is strong, dark, and slightly bitter. Its heat moves into your fingers as you watch an activity begin outside. Workers climb down from the locomotive carrying shovels and lanterns. Their boots disappear almost to the knee. One man tests the snow with a long pole, pressing downward to discover how deeply the drift has packed across the track. Another crew member walks along the side of the train, checking the wheels and brake lines. He moves slowly, keeping one hand against the carriage whenever the wind rises. Winter railway crews often use snowplows mounted on locomotives or pushed ahead of them. Large wedge-shaped blades force snow away from the rails, while more powerful rotating machines could cut through especially deep banks. Yet even strong equipment sometimes needed help from workers with shovels when wind packed snow tightly into narrow mountain cuts. Tonight, the front plough has entered the drift but cannot clear it in one attempt. The men begin digging around the blade. Their lanterns move through the white darkness, rising and falling with each careful step. Steam rolls around them, turning the workers into blurred figures who appear, vanish, and appear again. A shovel strikes hidden ice. The sharp sound reaches you through the glass. Then another follows. Soon, the cutting fills with a slow pattern of scraping, lifting, and throwing. Snow lands in heavy clumps along the rock wall, where the wind immediately begins shaping it into new curves. A curious railway tale claims that crews sometimes discovered fence rails, branches, and even abandoned farm tools buried inside large drifts. Wind could gather snow around almost anything, producing a white mound that looked harmless until a plough found something far less polite beneath it. You imagine the locomotive uncovering an entire forgotten wheelbarrow. The thought feels ridiculous, yet the mountains seem capable of hiding almost anything tonight. Inside the carriage, the steward opens a cupboard and brings out a wooden game board. A family begins arranging pieces on a table, though the youngest child immediately changes several rules. An elderly passenger reads aloud from a newspaper, selecting only the pleasant items and quietly folding away everything else. The delay becomes a temporary household. Cups pass from hand to hand, blankets appear, someone offers biscuits from a tin. The ordinary distance between strangers shrinks without ceremony. You return to your compartment and lower the lamp. Through the window, you can see the rear edge of the drift and the workers beyond it. Their coats glisten with melting snow whenever they approach the carriage lights. Arguments split among historians over whether winter rail service succeeded mainly because of powerful machinery or because of the endurance of labourers working in brutal conditions. Engines and ploughs receive much attention, but hand tools, local knowledge, and physical effort often decided whether a train moved at all. The scene outside makes that question feel less distant. A machine may challenge the mountain, but human hands still clear the final feat. A whistle sounds from the locomotive. The workers step back. The engine moves forward slowly, pressing the plough into the weakened bank. Snow rises along both sides in broad white waves. The train advances several yards, then stops again. The men return to their shovels. This process repeats with patient precision. Dig, test, signal, push, each attempt carries the locomotive farther into the cutting. Time becomes difficult to measure. Your coffee cools. The lamp throws a soft circle across the wall. Snow continues falling without any visible concern for schedules, tickets, or human ambition. At last, a green lantern swings beside the locomotive. The crew members climb aboard one by one. A final worker walks along the cleared rail, checking that no packed ridge remains beneath the wheels. He raises his arm and turns away from the track. The whistle gives 2 short calls. The train pulls. For one tense moment, the wheels slip against the rail. Then they catch. The carriage lurches gently, and the bank of snow begins moving past the window. The cutting opens ahead. Workers stand along the rock wall, faces red from cold and shovels resting against their shoulders. Their lanterns shine through the falling snow as each carriage passes. You lift one hand toward them. One man notices and raises his shovel in reply. The train gathers a slow, careful rhythm, carrying warm rooms, quiet passengers, and a fresh layer of snow north through the mountains. Behind you, the drift begins forming again. A pale brightness begins to gather at the edge of the window. At first, it seems no different from snow reflecting the carriage lamps. Then the darkness above the hills turns from black to charcoal, and the outlines of trees become visible against the sky. Night is loosening its hold. Quietly and without ceremony, you lift the shade fully. The storm has weakened to a fine, steady fall. Snow no longer races sideways across the glass. It drifts downwards in soft layers, settling on branches, fences, roofs, and the narrow shoulders of the railway. The landscape reveals itself one shape at a time. A field appears beside the tracks, smooth and untouched except for a crooked line of fence posts. Beyond it stands a barn with a steep roof, its red paint muted by the early light. Snow clings to the northern wall and gathers in deep folds around the doors. A farmhouse rests nearby. Smoke rises from its chimney in a thin blue ribbon. One downstairs window glows amber, suggesting that someone is awake, feeding a stove or preparing breakfast while the rest of the household sleeps. The train passes slowly enough for you to notice a pair of milk cans beside the porch. They stand half buried in snow, silver and patient, waiting for a collection that may arrive late. The sky brightens. Grey clouds remain heavy above the valley, but a narrow band of clear colour opens near the horizon. It begins as pale silver, then softens toward pink. The snow receives this light and returns it gently, brightening the whole countryside from below. You can now see the rails curving ahead. They run between low hills covered with maple, birch, and pine. Dark evergreen branches hold thick white cushions, while the bare limbs of deciduous trees form delicate patterns against the sky. The locomotive sends a low whistle across the valley. Its call sounds different in daylight, less mysterious but no less grand. The note reaches a cluster of houses beside a frozen stream. A porch door opens, and a bundled figure steps outside to watch the train pass. Railway timetables in the middle 20th century often scheduled overnight journeys so passengers could fall asleep in one region and wake in another. Morning arrival became part of the experience. Travellers opened their curtains to unfamiliar landscapes, fresh stations, and the practical surprise of discovering that distance had been crossed while they rested. You feel that strange gift now. The world outside seems newly made, not because it is untouched, but because you are seeing it at the first clear hour of day. A river follows the tracks for several miles. Its surface is mostly frozen. though a dark channel winds through the centre. Snow-covered stones rise above the water like rounded islands. Along the bank, thin reeds bend under frost. The train crosses a wooden bridge. The sound beneath you deepens into a brief rolling echo. You look down and see water moving slowly under shelves of ice. Mist rises from the open channel and drifts between the trees. On the far side, several deer stand near the forest edge. They lift their heads as the locomotive approaches. One turns immediately and disappears among the trunks. The others remain for a moment, still and watchful, before following. A curious footnote from winter travel concerns the way passengers sometimes try to identify animals from moving trains. Rabbits became foxes, tree stumps became bears, and one ordinary cow might be promoted into something rare enough to justify waking an entire sleeping compartment. You continue watching the tree line with suitable caution. A dark shape appears near a snowbank. It is only a mailbox. The train enters a broad valley where small farms lie scattered across the white ground. Stone walls divide the fields, their upper rocks barely visible. Wooden sheds lean beneath thick roofs of snow. Tracks from a horse-drawn sleigh cross one lane and vanish behind a row of trees. Morning activity begins in quiet fragments. A farmer carries a bucket toward a barn. A child in a wool cap pushes open a gate. Two horses stand beneath a shelter, steam rising from their backs. Near one house, a woman shakes a rug from the porch, sending a small cloud of powder into the air. None of these people can hear the gentle hum inside your compartment. To them, the train is a distant force of iron and steam. To you, their homes are brief pictures framed by glass. The carriage lights dim as daylight strengthens. Polished wood loses its amber glow and takes on a clearer brown. The mirror above the basin reflects the grey sky. Frost along the window begins to soften, forming tiny drops that slide toward the frame. Historians continue to disagree about whether railways preserved rural communities by connecting them to wider markets or weakened them by drawing people and trade toward larger towns. Some villages depended upon rail service for mail, goods, and visitors. Others watched local businesses fade as movement became easier. The farms outside seem to hold both possibilities. Each trackside platform promises connection. Each passing train also promises departure. You hear doors opening along the corridor. Sleepy passengers emerge in robes and coats and carefully arranged hair. A child presses both hands against the window and announces that everything is white. His father agrees with great seriousness, as though this discovery requires official confirmation. A porter carries a tray of coffee cups toward the lounge. The scent follows him through the carriage. It mixes with clean linen, warm metal, and the faint fragrance of coal smoke entering through some distant vent. You open your compartment door and step into the corridor. Daylight fills the windows now. The valley has widened, and distant hills rise beyond it in layered shades of blue and grey. Their slopes are covered with a forest, each ridge paler than the one before. The storm has left its mark everywhere. Roads have narrowed between high banks. Telephone wires sag under ice. Trees bend towards the ground, yet the sky continues clearing from the east. A break opens in the clouds. Sunlight touches the highest ridge. The effect is gradual, then sudden. One snowy summit turns gold, another brightens beside it. The light descends through the trees, revealing green pine beneath white branches. Passengers gather near the windows. No one speaks for several breaths. The mountains stand calm above the valley, immense and freshly washed by the storm. Smoke rises from farm chimneys. A church steeple appears beyond a bend, its white walls almost blending into the fields. The train follows the river north. Its wheels recover a gentle pace, steady and unhurried. Daylight spreads across the carriage, across the farms, and across the distant Vermont hills. You rest one hand against the cool glass. The long night has thinned into silver morning, and the world beyond the window opens quietly beneath a sky that is finally beginning to clear. The scent of fresh coffee leads you towards the dining car. where morning light now rests across white tablecloths and polished silver. The room feels gentler in daylight. Lamps remain lit beneath their shades, but the windows have become the true decoration, opening onto forests washed clean by snow. A steward guides you to a table beside the glass. You settle into the cushioned chair and unfold a napkin across your lap. Outside, tall pines pass in measured rows, their dark needles almost hidden beneath thick white branches. Each tree seems to bow under the weight, then straighten as the train leaves it behind. A porcelain cup waits near your hand. Coffee pours in a dark, shining stream. Steam rises toward your face, carrying a rich roasted scent. You add a little cream and watch pale clouds turn slowly through the liquid. The first sip is hot enough to demand respect. Warmth spreads through your mouth, your chest, and finally your hands as they close around the cup. The storm may still occupy the fields and hills, but at this table it has been reduced to scenery. A waiter presents the breakfast card. You choose eggs, crisp potatoes, toast, and a small portion of smoked ham. There is also oatmeal with brown sugar, fruit preserved in syrup, and griddle cake served with maple syrup. The possibilities are generous, especially for a kitchen moving between mountains. Breakfast service aboard leading the passenger train often began long before most travellers woke. Cooks worked in narrow kitchens where every pan, knife, and jar required a secure place. Fresh ingredients were loaded at major stations, while bread, dairy products, meat, and produce had to remain usable across long journeys. You hear the kitchen through a swing door. Pans knock softly. A metal drawer closes. Someone gives a short instruction, and another voice answers. The workers sound calm, though preparing eggs on a moving floor must require more faith than most recipes admit. Your plate arrives warm. The eggs are soft and golden. Potatoes have been browned at the edges and seasoned with pepper. The ham carries a faint sweetness that pairs perfectly with the toast. Butter melts into the bread, gathering in tiny shining pools. You eat slowly. Beyond the window, the forest opens onto a meadow. Snow lies smooth across it except for a line of animal tracks. They begin near a stone wall, cross the field in a wandering pattern, and vanish beneath low branches. A farmhouse stands on the far side. Its roof releases a thin curl of smoke. Near the barn, a man clears a path with a wide shovel, lifting snow and throwing it onto a bank already higher than his knees. A dog follows him, repeatedly stepping into the cleared path as though taking full credit for the work. The train enters another stand of pines. Their branches pass close to the glass, filling the view with green, white, and fleeting shadows. Sunlight breaks through the clouds in narrow beams, catching flakes that still drift from the upper branches. Oddly enough, maple syrup served on trains could inspire surprisingly serious passenger opinions. Some travellers insisted upon pure Vermont syrup, while others accepted blended table syrup without protest. A breakfast disagreement over sweetness could apparently reveal a person's entire moral character, at least according to those who cared deeply enough. A small pitcher arrives beside your plate. You pour maple syrup over one slice of toast. It spreads slowly, dark and glossy, carrying the scent of wood smoke and boiled sap. The flavour is rich without being heavy, and for a moment the whole landscape outside seems to belong inside that little silver pitcher. Across the aisle, a mother cuts riddle cakes for her daughter. The child stacks the pieces into a tower, pours syrup across the top, and watches the structure collapse with quiet delight. An elderly gentleman near the doorway reads the morning paper. He pauses occasionally to look outside it, perhaps comparing printed events with the much more immediate news of sunlight on snow. His spectacles rest low on his nose, and a cup of coffee remains untouched beside his hand. You finish the eggs and take another sip. The train passes a narrow road where two horses pull a sleigh loaded with split firewood. Their harness bells make no sound through the glass, but you can imagine the clear notes carrying across the cold air. The driver raises one mittened hand as the train moves by. Arguments differ among scholars over how strongly railway tourism shaped Vermont's winter identity. Some believe trains introduced large numbers of visitors to mountain inns, ski slopes, and snowy villages. Others suggest that local traditions already carried their own appeal, and the railways merely gave distant travellers easier access. The view outside supports both ideas. The landscape feels ancient in its winter quiet, yet the railway places you inside it without asking you to struggle through buried roads or frozen passes. The waiter clears your plate and offers more coffee. You accept. A fresh cup arrives, darker and hotter than the first. Beside it comes a small bowl of stewed apples dusted with cinnamon. The fruit is tender, and its warmth carries a gentle sweetness that suits the slow movement of the morning. The dining car rocks through a curve. Sunlight travels across the sill, touching the spoon, the cup, and the folded corner of your napkin. Crystal water glasses scatter tiny points of light onto the cloth. Outside, the pines begin to thin. Small fields appear between them, bordered by stone walls and wooden fences. A red barn stands beside a frozen pond. Several cows remain inside an open shelter, their dark shapes quiet against the straw. The hills ahead become clearer. They rise in long white folds beneath a pale blue sky. Clouds cling to the higher ridges, while lower slopes reveal dark forest and scattered houses. Conversation in the dining car remains soft. Passengers speak about weather, luggage, road conditions, and the likely depth of snow in the villages. One woman wonders whether her boots are suitable. Her companion looks at them and replies with a silence that contains the entire answer. You smile into your cup. The final spoonful of apples leaves cinnamon on your tongue. The coffee warms your hands. The train carries you between fields and forests, steady beneath the clearing sky. Breakfast ends without hurry. You remain by the window as the table is cleared, watching the evergreens drift past in calm procession. Their snowy branches frame distant mountains, white roads, and farmhouse chimneys sending smoke into the cold blue morning. The world outside is bright now. Inside, the last warmth of coffee settles gently through you as the train continues toward the quiet heart of Vermont. The hills draw closer to the railway, their long white slopes rising beyond clusters of pine and bare maple. Morning light rests upon every ridge, revealing dark bands of forest beneath the snow. Somewhere beyond those heights stands Mount Mansfield, broad and watchful above the country. You return to the window as the train follows a narrow valley. The river beside the tracks winds between shelves of ice. Open water appears in dark, moving ribbons reflecting patches of pale sky. Along the bank, alder branches bend low beneath frost, and small birds dart between them with surprising purpose. A wooden sign beside the line announces the approach to the Stowe area. The letters pass quickly, yet the name lingers in your thoughts. Stowe is no great city waiting with towers and crowded avenues. It is a mountain village gathered among farms, forests, inns, and roads shaped by the land. The train reduces speed. Its wheels settle into a quieter rhythm as scattered houses appear through the trees. Most are built of wood and painted white, cream, or muted yellow. Their steep roofs shed part of the snowfall, leaving thick curved banks beneath the eaves. Smoke rises from several chimneys. One house has green shutters and a porch nearly buried behind a wall of snow. Another stands beside a red barn connected by a covered passage, allowing people to reach the animals without walking directly through the worst weather. You notice curtains moving in an upstairs window. A woman looks toward the train, then disappears into the room. A moment later, a child appears beside hers and presses both hands against the glass. The railway has announced your arrival before you have reached any platform. Its whistle rolls across the valley, entering kitchens, barns, workshops, and quiet rooms where clocks have just begun the working day. By the middle of the 20th century, Stowe is already becoming one of New England's best-known winter destinations. Skiing has attracted visitors to the slopes around Mount Mansfield, while inns and guest houses welcome travellers seeking cold air, mountain scenery, and the pleasant exhaustion of spending all day attempting to remain upright on snow. The train rounds a low hillside. The village begins to reveal itself. A white church steeple rises above the trees, narrow and elegant against the blue-grey sky. Below it, roofs gather along a winding road. Snow covers the road almost completely, though two dark tracks mark the route taken by cars, sleighs, and delivery trucks. The central street does not run in a perfect line. It bends with the valley, following older paths that existed long before anyone dreamed of arriving with skis tied to a motor car. Shops stand close together near the road. Their windows display wool coats, boots, wooden toys, jars of preserves, and winter equipment. A small bakery has placed loaves behind a fogged pane. Even through the sealed railway window, you can almost imagine the scent of warm bread and sugar. A delivery man pulls a handcart through the snow. The wheels sink deeply, and he leans forward with patient determination. Two boxes wobble at the top of the load. He pauses when the train whistle sounds, looks toward the line, and raises his cap. Nearby, a blacksmith shop or repair shed stands with its wide doors open. Warm orange light shines inside. A man works near a bench while another holds a horse by the bridle. Steam rises from the animal's back into the cold air. One amusing winter custom among some mountain inns involves keeping a long row of slippers near the entrance. Guests remove wet boots before entering the main rooms, then attempt to identify their assigned slippers from a collection that looks almost identical. By evening, someone is usually wearing a pair 2 sizes too large and pretending not to notice. The houses become more frequent. Some are modest family homes, while others have broad porches and several chimneys, suggesting boarding houses or inns. Freshly shoveled paths lead from their doors toward the road. Wooden signs swing from posts, bearing names chosen to sound peaceful, rustic, or reassuringly old. A horse-drawn sleigh waits outside one of them. The horse stamps one hoof and sends powder across the road. Its harness is decorated with small bells. The driver sits beneath a heavy blanket, shoulders rounded against the cold. A pair of travellers stands beside the sleigh with luggage piled around their boots. One points excitedly toward the approaching train. The other appears more concerned about keeping a hat from blowing away. You catch your own reflection in the glass. The village moves through it, layering white houses and dark trees across your face. For a moment, you seem to belong equally to the warm carriage and the snowy road outside. Historians have not reached a settled view on whether winter tourism changed Stowe more through economic opportunity or cultural pressure. Visitors supported inns, shops, guides, and transportation. Yet growing popularity also encouraged the village to present a carefully polished version of rural life. The place remained a working community, even as travellers increasingly arrived expecting a picture-perfect winter world. The distinction feels visible from the train. Behind the charming shop front stand woodpiles and sheds, barns, and practical yards filled with tools. Snow may soften every roofline, but it cannot remove the labour required to live here. A plough truck moves slowly along the main road. Its blade pushes snow into a rolling wave that spills toward the roadside. Two boys follow at a distance, jumping into the fresh banks despite the serious objections of a woman standing on a porch. The church steeple grows larger. Its clock face shows the morning hour in dark Roman numerals. The bell remains silent, though the train whistle sounds once more as the line crosses a road near the village edge. Cars wait behind a lowered gate. Their roofs are covered in snow, and exhaust rises from their pipes in pale clouds. A bus stands behind them with luggage tied beneath a canvas sheet. Several passengers lean toward its windows to watch the carriages pass. Farther up the valley, the mountain slopes open between the trees. You can see narrow, cleared paths descending through the forest. Skiers appear as tiny moving figures, dark against the white. One glides smoothly. Another stops suddenly and sits down with remarkable decisiveness. The railway bends toward a small station. Porters are already waiting beneath the roof. Luggage carts stand near the platform, their wheels surrounded by shoveled piles. A station master checks his watch while a driver holds a sign bearing the name of a local inn. You gather your gloves from the table. The compartment still carries the gentle warmth of polished wood and heated air, but the village outside now feels close enough to touch. Chimneys send smoke into the clear morning. Bells move on sleigh harnesses. Snow lies deep along every lane. The train slows to a graceful crawl. Stowe waits among the mountains, bright beneath the fresh snow, while the final stretch of track carries you toward its quiet winter streets. The train enters the station beneath a canopy edged with long icicles. Its brakes sigh across the rails, and the wheels turn with patient slowness until the final motion fades beneath your feet. Silence arrives almost at once. Not complete silence, of course. Steam escapes near the locomotive. A baggage cart creaks across packed snow. Somewhere beneath the station roof, a loose sign taps gently against its chain. Yet after the long movement of the train, these separate sounds seem small and delicate. You stand inside your compartment with your coat buttoned and your gloves tucked into one pocket. The suitcase rests on the folding stand, closed and ready. Morning light fills the polished room, touching the brass lamp and the blue velvet seat. A porter knocks and enters. He lifts your suitcase with the smooth confidence of someone who knows exactly how heavy travellers believe their luggage is, and how heavy it actually is. He checks the compartment once, glancing beneath the seat and inside the wardrobe to make certain nothing has been forgotten. Your scarf lies on the wash basin. He notices it before you do. You thank him and wrap it around your neck, quietly grateful that your arrival has not begun with the loss of the one object designed to keep winter away from your collar. The corridor is filled with subdued movement. Doors open, passengers adjust hats, gather parcels, and wait while attendants guide them toward the exit. The child from the dining car carries a small wooden sled under one arm. It knocks against every doorway with cheerful persistence. You join the line. At the end of the carriage, no cold air enters through the open outer door. It reaches you in a clean rush, smelling of snow, pine, wood smoke, and coal steam. The difference is immediate. Your warm breath becomes visible. The brass handrail feels cold even through your glove. The porter steps down first and turns to assist you. Your boot meets the metal step. Then you descend onto the platform. Snow gives a firm crunch beneath your feet. The surface has been cleared, yet a thin powder has settled across it since the last shovel passed. The air feels bright and sharp against your cheeks, so pure that every breath seems to ring inside your chest. Behind you, the train rests beneath drifting steam. Its dark carriages stretch along the platform, windows glowing softly in the winter morning. Frost clings to the metal sides. Snow has gathered on roofs, steps and couplings, marking the long struggle through the mountain weather. The locomotive stands at the front like a tired but dignified animal. Steam rolls around its wheels and rises above the station roof. A crew member walks beside it, inspecting rods and fittings. His coat is open at the neck despite the cold, which suggests either remarkable toughness or a long, personable argument with sensible clothing. Rail travel helped mountain communities maintain regular contact with larger towns during the middle 20th century. Passenger trains carried visitors, mail, newspapers, supplies, and workers through regions where winter roads could become difficult or impassable. A station platform was therefore not simply a place of arrival. It was a doorway through which much of the wider world entered. That doorway is busy this morning. A station master calls instructions to two porters. Crates are unloaded from a baggage car. A canvas mail sack lands on a cart with a heavy thump. Bundles of newspapers follow, tied with string and dusted with snow. Several drivers wait near the building, each holding a sign marked with the name of an inn or guest house. They study the arriving passengers carefully, searching for faces known only from letters or telephone calls. One driver raises a board bearing the name of your lodging. You signal to him. He lifts his cap and begins walking toward you, stepping around luggage, children, and a large basket from which a deeply offended chicken can be heard complaining. Oddly enough, Lev birds, Giptetul, household goods, and farm produce often travelled through railway stations beside elegant passengers. Luxury and practical rural life could share a platform without finding the arrangement unusual. The driver introduces himself and takes your suitcase from the porter. He wears a heavy wool coat with a knitted scarf tucked beneath the collar. His face is red from the cold, and his eyebrows carry tiny crystals of frost. He explains that the road into the village has been cleared, though fresh drifts are forming near the bridge. A sleigh waits beyond the station yard because the narrow road near the inn is easier to cross by runners than by wheels. The idea feels perfectly suited to the morning. You walk toward the station building. Its wooden walls are painted cream, with dark green trim around the doors and windows. Snow rises almost to the lower window frames. Beneath the eaves, icicles hang in clear rows, each one catching the sun. Inside the waiting room, a cast-iron stove radiates heat. Travellers gather around it while tickets are checked and messages delivered. A chalkboard lists arrival times. Though several have been corrected, the storm has written its own timetable. Historians remain divided on whether small railway stations encouraged equality by bringing many kinds of travellers into the same public space, or simply reproduced the social divisions found elsewhere. Waiting rooms, ticket classes, and local customs could separate people, yet everyone still depended upon the same rails, weather, and station clock. You pause near the stove only long enough to warm your hands. Then the driver opens the outer door. Winter sunlight spreads across the station yard. Snowbanks stand higher than the nearby fences. Beyond them, dark evergreens rise against a pale blue sky, and the white shoulder of a mountain appears above the roofs. The sleigh waits beside a hitching post. It is painted black, with red trim along the curved runners. A thick blanket lies across the rear seat. The horse wears a brown harness decorated with small brass bells, and its breath rises in steady clouds. Your suitcase is secured behind the seat. You place one boot on the metal step and climb in. The leather cushion is cold at first, but the driver draws the heavy blanket across your knees. Its wool weight settles warmly around you. The horse turns its head slightly, listening for the commands. Behind the sleigh, the station continues its morning work. Porters push carts, passengers greet waiting relatives. Steam moves around the train in bright folds. The driver gathers the reins. The bells give one clear shake. The runners begin to slide across the packed snow, carrying you away from the platform and into the crisp mountain air while the train stands quietly beneath the winter sun. The horse leans into the harness, and the sleigh glides across the packed snow with barely a sound. Only the bells announce your movement, bright and delicate above the soft scrape of the runners. You settle beneath the heavy wool blanket. Cold air touches the small space between your scarf and collar, while sunlight flashes across the white road. The driver sits upright ahead of you, reins resting loosely in his gloved hands. He speaks to the horse in a low voice, and the animal answers with a steady rhythm of hooves. The station yard gives way to a narrow lane bordered by snowbanks. They rise almost to your shoulders, smooth where the plough has cut them and feathered where fresh powder has settled. Wooden fence posts appear at intervals, each wearing a rounded cap of snow. Beyond them, open fields stretch toward dark forest. The sleigh follows the curve of the road. Its runners make a gentle hiss beneath you. There are no wheels striking stones, no engine shaking the seat, and no sudden rattle from metal parts. Movement feels lighter here, as though the road itself is carrying you. The driver points toward the mountain. Mount Mansfield rises beyond the valley, its upper slopes hidden by thin cloud. Sunlight touches the lower ridges, revealing patches of pine and broad white openings. Tiny figures move across one distant slope, descending slowly through the morning brightness. The horse's breath drifts backward in pale clouds. Each cloud catches the sun, then dissolves. Sleighs remained practical winter transportation in many northern communities long after motorcars appeared. Deep snow could make ordinary wheels unreliable, while broad runners moved more easily across packed roads. Horses also required no fuel delivery, though they did insist upon food, rest, and opinions of their own. Your horse appears to hold a firm opinion about the pace. Whenever the road levels, it quickens slightly. The bells lift into a livelier pattern, and the sleigh glides with effortless grace. When the road rises, the animal slows and lowers its head, saving its strength with far more wisdom than most hurried travellers. The first houses appear among the trees. A white farmhouse stands behind a stone wall. Smoke rising from 2 chimneys, split firewood is stacked beneath a shed roof. A pair of snowshoes hangs beside the porch door, and a broom rests against the railing. A woman shakes a tablecloth outside. She pauses to watch you pass, one hand raised against the sun. The driver tips his cap. She returns the greeting, then disappears inside, taking the cold tablecloth with her. The lane enters the village. Here the snowbanks are marked with doorways, paths, and narrow steps cut towards shops. Wooden signs swing gently above the road. Their painted letters advertise wool goods, baked bread, ski repairs, and rooms with hot water. A luxury worth mentioning in winter. A bakery door opens. Warm air escapes into the street, carrying the scent of bread, cinnamon, and melted butter. A boy steps outside with a covered basket balanced against his chest. He watches the sleigh pass with the serious concentration usually reserved for parades and runaway pies. You turn beneath the blanket and look through the bakery window. Loaves stand in neat rows behind the glass. Copper pans hang above a work table. A woman dusts flour from her hands while speaking to a customer in a fur-lined hat. The scene slips away. Ahead, the church steeple rises above the roofs. Its white boards reflect the sun so brightly that the edges nearly disappear into the sky. A bell begins to ring, slow and clear, each note travelling across the village and fading against the hills. Your sleigh bells answer in smaller voices. Oddly enough, the bells on horse-drawn sleighs served a practical purpose. Runners moved quietly over snow, so pedestrians and other drivers might not hear a sleigh approaching. The bells provided warning, while also making every winter errand sound rather more festive than carrying flour or collecting firewood probably deserved. You pass an inn with a broad porch. Rocking chairs stand beneath the roof, each covered by a careful mound of snow. Evergreen branches frame the doorway, tied with red ribbon. Through the front windows, a fire glows inside a stone hearth. Guests sit near the flames with cups in their hands. One woman reads a book, another bends to warm her gloves. A man in a sweater studies a folded map with the worried expression of someone who has discovered that mountains rarely arrange themselves for convenience. The horse turns onto a narrower street. The runners cross old tracks pressed into the snow. A delivery sleigh approaches from the opposite direction, carrying milk cans under wooden crates. Both drivers slow. The horses pass nose to nose, bells mingling for a few seconds before separating again. A small covered bridge waits at the edge of the village. Its wooden entrance appears dark against the snow, framed by beams worn smooth at the corners. The driver guides the horse toward it, and the sound changes as soon as the runners enter. Hooves strike the wooden floor in deep, hollow beats. The bells echo beneath the roof. Light enters through narrow openings along the sides, creating bright bars across the interior. Through them, you glimpse a frozen stream below. Dark water moves beneath shelves of ice, and snow-covered branches lean over the banks. The bridge protects you from the wind for a few peaceful moments. The scent of old timber surrounds you. The boards beneath the sleigh give small creaks, not alarming ones, merely the complaints of wood that has carried generations of wagons, horses, carts, and travellers with excessive luggage. Researchers continue to question whether the covered bridges of New England became beloved, mainly because of their practical design, or because later tourism transformed them into symbols of an ideal rural past. Roofs protected wooden structures from harsh weather, yet postcards and travel writing gave them a romance far beyond ordinary engineering. The sleigh emerges into sunlight. The stream follows the road, winding between trees and snow-covered stones. Several children stand near its bank, building a fort from packed blocks. One waves. Another attempts to throw a snowball toward the sleigh, but it falls several yards short and disappears harmlessly into a drift. The driver laughs under his breath. The road climbs toward a group of larger inns. Their windows shine gold beneath steep roofs. Icicles hang from balconies, and smoke rises steadily from chimneys. Skis rest in wooden racks near the entrances. Boots line one porch in uneven rows, each pair carrying enough snow to create a private indoor storm. Your lodging stands at the end of a curved drive. Lanterns hang beside the doorway. A wreath of pine and cedar covers the centre of the door. Through the windows, you see deep chairs, wooden beams, and this gentle movement of firelight. The horse slows. The bells soften into separate notes. The sleigh comes to rest beneath a covered entrance, and an innkeeper steps outside to greet you. Warmth spills from the open door, carrying the scents of pine wood, coffee, and something sweet baking in the kitchen. You lift the blanket from your knees. For one final moment, you remain seated, listening to the horse breathe and the bells settle into silence. Snow drifts from the branches. The village rests beneath the mountain, and the warm windows of the inn wait only a few steps away. The innkeeper leads you through the open doorway, and warmth closes around you at once. Snow melts along the edges of your boots while the scents of cedar, beeswax, coffee, and burning maple wood drift through the entrance hall. Your suitcase is carried upstairs, but you remain near the sitting room. A broad stone fireplace fills one wall. Flames move around dark logs, sending amber light across heavy chairs, braided rugs, and low wooden tables. The room holds the pleasant quiet of a place where nobody feels required to speak. You remove your gloves and loosen your scarf. An armchair waits near the hearth. Upholstered in deep green fabric, you lower yourself into it, and the cushion settles comfortably beneath your weight. A small footstool stands nearby. Coolbeat. You stretch out your legs and feel the last coldness leave your boots. Beyond the windows, snow continues to fall. The flakes are smaller now, descending almost straight through the calm morning air. They gather along the porch railing and soften the tracks left by the sleigh. The mountain remains partly hidden, but its lower forested slopes appear through the pale mist. A member of the staff brings you a cup of warm cider. The fragrance reaches you before the cup touches your hands. Apple, cinnamon, and cloves rise with the steam. You take a careful sip and feel gentle heat move through your chest. The fire gives a quiet crack. A bright spark rises, glows briefly, and disappears into the chimney. Historic Vermont inns often served as more than lodging houses. They offered meals, local news, transportation arrangements, and gathering spaces where residents and visitors could meet. During winter, the hearth became both a practical source of heat and the social centre of the building. You can understand its importance without effort. Every chair seems to face the flames, even those placed at a distance. Guests drift toward the warmth, carrying books, newspapers, knitting, and cups. Conversation begins softly and fades just as easily. An older woman sits near the opposite window with a basket of wool beside her. Her needles move in a calm rhythm, drawing a dark red scarf from the loose yarn. A gentleman sleeps behind an open newspaper, though he occasionally adjusts the pages to preserve the appearance of reading. Near the mantel, a clock measures the morning with slow wooden ticks. Its sound joins the fire, the wind, and the faint murmur of footsteps overhead. You lean back and listen. The inn has its own winter language. Floorboards creak beneath passing shoes. Pipes murmur inside the walls. A door closes gently in the kitchen. Somewhere upstairs, a suitcase lid snaps shut. None of it asks for your attention. Outside, a snow shovel scrapes across the front steps. The innkeeper clears a narrow path. pauses to study the sky, then continues. His movements are steady and practical. Snow may be beautiful, but it also waits directly in front of every door. Oddly enough, some old inns kept warming pans for cold beds. Hot coals were placed inside a covered metal pan with a long handle, then moved carefully between the sheets before a guest retired. The method could create a wonderfully warm bed, provided nobody became distracted and accidentally attempted to roast the mattress. A young member of staff approaches and tells you that your room is ready. You carry the cider upstairs. The staircase turns beside a tall window where frost forms pale fern shapes across the glass. At the landing, a narrow corridor stretches beneath exposed wooden beams. Small lamps cast pools of yellow light along the walls, and your room waits beneath a sloping roof. The door opens onto a wide bed covered with a thick quilt. A braided rug lies beside it, and a wooden chest stands beneath the window. Fresh water fills a pitcher near the washstand. A smaller fireplace glows in the corner, its flames low and steady. You set the cup on the bedside table. The window looks toward the village. Roofs descend along the hillside, each one buried beneath white layers. Chimneys release thin trails of smoke. The church steeple rises above them, sharp and peaceful against the clearing sky. Farther away, the railway line is hidden by trees and distance. Only a faint whistle reaches you. The sound crosses the valley so softly that it might be mistaken for wind. It lingers for a moment, then fades among the hills. Scholars still disagree about whether the romance of railway travel comes mainly from memory or from the experience itself. Some argue that time smooths away delays, cold platforms, and uncomfortable moments. Others believe the combination of motion, distance, and private reflection creates a genuine emotional power that survives long after the journey ends. You stand beside the window and watch a thin line of steam rise beyond the pines. The train is moving again. Its carriages are hidden, but you can imagine the warm windows gliding through the valley, carrying new passengers toward other stations. Soon, even the steam disappears. You close the curtains halfway. The room grows softer. You sit on the edge of the bed and remove your boots. They rest beside the rug, still carrying a dusting of snow around the soles. Your coat hangs from a wooden peg. The quilt feels smooth beneath your hand, stitched in patterns of squares, stars, and dark green leaves. The mattress gives gently when you lie back. A deep feather pillow supports your head. The fire sends moving shadows across the ceiling beams. Each flame brightens, bends, and settles. You draw the quilt over yourself. Its weight feels reassuring, not heavy. Warmth gathers around your shoulders and legs. The cider leaves a pleasant sweetness on your tongue. Outside, the final edge of the blizzard loosens. Snow falls more slowly. Wind moves through the pines with a low, distant sigh. The village road becomes quiet as people retreat indoors for breakfast, work, or another hour near the stove. Your breathing grows slower. The clock in the hallway continues its patient measure. You remember not events, but sensations. Brass warmed by lamplight, glass trembling beside white linen, deep wheels speaking beneath the floor, lanterns moving through snow, a green signal shining in darkness. Each image appears, softens, and drifts away. The fire settles lower. A log breaks gently and folds into glowing red coals. Heat continues to rise through the room surrounding the bed with calm. Your eyelids close. The mountain, the village, and the buried road become quieter in your mind. Even the distant railway fades until only its rhythm remains, slow and comforting. 2 gentle beats. A pause. 2 gentle beats. You no longer need to travel anywhere. The bed holds you safely beneath the sloping roof. Snow rests against the window. The fire watches over the room. And the memory of the luxury train carries you onward, not through mountains or storms, but into the deep, peaceful country of sleep. The firelight grows dimmer now, and the room becomes still. Your journey rests behind closed eyes, wrapped in snow, warm wood, and the gentle music of distant rails. Let every remaining thought slow until it feels light enough to drift away. When you wake, perhaps you will remember one small detail more clearly than all the others. Leave a comment sharing the moment you enjoyed most, whether it was the glowing dining car, or the mountain signal, the quiet sleigh bells, or the first sight of Stowe beneath fresh snow. Your words help other listeners discover these peaceful journeys, and they help this channel continue creating calm places where history, yes, imagination and rest can meet. Another story is waiting for you on the channel, ready to open a different door into the past. Until then, breathe slowly, settle deeply, and let the last train whistle fade beyond the snowy hills. Blessings to you and your family.